Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to view Quantum Leap, Season 1, Episode 6. So, this episode is to be titled What a Disaster, and luckily, the episode does not go on and match what the title states. This episode actually was a solid okay episode, because you can't really mess up a disaster episode. The only thing that I feel could have been the downfall of this episode is really the behind the leap scenes that, of course, again end up going nowhere. Because it's like, okay, like we end up getting a backstory of a character, but where does it go beyond that? Nowhere? Great. What another waste of time that was. But so we go on into this episode that, of course, does technically remind me of certain other Quantum Leap original episodes. And speaking of which, I am also going on and reviewing the original Quantum Leap show. Like, I just started it, and who knows where that's really going to go. If you're also interested in seeing the reviews of the current product, Quantum Leap, as well as the original, then maybe you want to subscribe, or maybe you want to go on and just see both simultaneously, from which I am going on. And who knows if I'm going to review more of the original series, but maybe I'll go on and keep checking it out. So, a little plug, I guess, there, I'm sorry. But so, for the current product, Quantum Leap, this, of course, is to remind me of the Hurricane episode from the original Quantum Leap, where Sam was to be the sheriff. And from what I remember about that episode, Sam, as the sheriff, was to be dealing with two different women. That it seems that one was to go on and be fairly obsessed about this sheriff to the point to where she puts lives at risk. And so, like, that kind of reminded me of this episode. But also, on top of that, there is having me recently watch Season 1, Episode 2 of the original Quantum Leap, and there is a moment within that episode that is to also be the same as, of course, this one. And I will go on and state that when we actually get to that moment in this episode. So that way I'm not kind of revealing too much about this episode. So, now for what is to be this current episode. So, we, of course, via the last episode, was to deal with this other leaper, it seems. And so, come to find out, the Behind the Leap people are going to figure out who this guy is. And they end up having a catchy nickname of Leaper X for this character, but then they are to also go on and find this character, get the backstory of this character, and waste our time. But then also, we are to have Song, who is to be in 1989, leaping into a guy named John Harvey. So, in this episode, we are, of course, calling this What a Disaster, and the disaster in this episode is to, of course, be a earthquake. And so, immediately we're having a episode that is to tie in to seemingly actually a location where they are tying into San Francisco, and there is a baseball game going on in the background, which is to tell us what year it is, but then Song has to go on and ask what year it is. So this guy isn't very observant, and even Naomi is realizing that Song isn't all that observant when she's going on and talking all this dialogue, and Song could care less. So, speaking of Naomi, who is to actually be Jewel, the actor name is Jewel, is actually from Firefly, if you guys couldn't have caught within this episode who this character is. So a cast member from Firefly is on this episode, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. And I had gone on and caught that show, and so it was like, oh wow, like that's probably mainly where I remember her from, but I know she's in a number of other things, but like Firefly is the first thing that came up. So going into this episode, we of course have Song, who is having relationship troubles of his own, where it seems that Song is to find out from Naomi fairly early in the sleep that it seems that things aren't working out between the two of them. And then Song is to go on and realize that there could be a natural disaster, aka earthquake, happening. And so Song is to realize that this episode is to be tied to not only Naomi, but family. To where we are to also go on and have Song start to remember flashbacks about his own mother, Song's own mother. And so, come to find out, Song is to realize that he should probably go on and be able to make a certain phone call because he may never be able to again. So, with that said, that is to cover, in all technicality, what happens in this episode. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this episode, where you're kind of just like, hey, I was sold by this one, or no, like I hated this one, it sucked. Like how did you feel about this one? Or if you were to go on and just be like, yeah, I'm still unsure about this show so far, I can understand. Maybe people are going to be much more sold by the original series and want to watch that, because I of course was watched the first 2 episodes of the pilot, and then the second episode I'm like, man, this show was great, easily great, effortlessly great. Why can't this show be like that? But I also started to learn that this show does really go on and copy and paste from the original, because I can kind of have these feels of like, man, they're doing the same thing. But so anyways, let's go on and let's go into that double 5, because it's about that time. Let's try and go into what of course is spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this episode. So we of course are to kind of take and leap off where leap off from where we were. So we go on into this episode and we find Song and Addison, who are to be still in the wild, wild west, going on and talking about one another, wanting to kiss one another, even though Addison is a hologram, and talking about their relationship and so on and so forth. Blah, 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 blah. It's a bunch of just garbage. And we end up having Leaper Rex, who makes his appearance, grabs onto Song, and is to tell him to stop following him. And so we immediately have Leaper X, who knows that Song is Song from 2022, because of course we are to find out somewhere in this episode that Leaper X, who has the same technology as Song, and they are both leaping, they can easily see who one another is. And I don't remember if, like, when there was another Leaper in the original Quantum Leap episodes, if that was the same case. I don't remember. For those of you who are going on and maybe backtracking the original series, probably you can give me that answer. So, we have Song after this brief grabbing of this Leaper and he leaps out. We have now Addison that is running off to Ian and Jen, now trying to go on and ask either one of them, like, well, hey, who is this guy? Like why is why was he attacking Song, so on and so forth? Like, who is this guy? Do we have another Leaper? Da 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 da. And so we have Ian and Jen who are just like, I don't know. Like, we'll have to figure this out. Come to find out, Jen is to have somehow grabbed a screenshot from uh, the time of which that either Song or Addison had gone on and leaped. So they can go on and figure out via a photo who this guy is. Because Ian, Jen, and Magic are all coming to a clear consensus of who could also be having leap technology here. And they're going on and they're possibly thinking it's like, well, like it can't be another military project because we would go on and like know about it. And this guy is to also speak English, so like they're ruling it out that it could be from another country who is trying the same thing. And honestly, I think that would be cool if we could like branch off and just have a number of like leapers from a number of different countries like come onto this show. But again, like when really looking at it, you would have a number of people that would all have their like transitional way of whatever, but still, like I want to see that happen also to be something unique here. But so, anyways, they immediately are to think that this must be some private contractor like an Elon Musk or something like that that can go on and be able to afford this kind of technology to create it. And so immediately they're not ruling in Janice here. Calavici? They're not thinking of a woman named Janice that has been in a number of episodes. Is that character dead now? Did they? I complained about this character, but like it makes sense to. There needs to have been the following week. There needs to be something with that character. I swear, it's been 3 weeks now, right? Since they've mentioned, they've done on to like they've referenced, but they haven't. We haven't seen her. What's going on? What's going on with that? So, anyways, we now focusing back on, of course, Song. Let's cover some of that stuff. Let's cover some of that. So, this is 1989, and Song is in San Francisco. So, Sung, of course, is a leap into John Harvey, and he is in the midst of a bar where he is all of a sudden talking to, of course, Naomi. And Naomi is talking about that she has given up so much for this relationship to realize that the one thing that she is going to give up next is John herself. That she is calling it quits for this relationship, that they're going to go on and have a divorce. And while Naomi is stating all of this stuff, Song is looking around at the bar, just looking at hot women and looking at like, okay, this is uh possibly in Oakland, or no, wait, it's in San Francisco. Okay, like what year is it? He looks on the TV, they tell him exactly what year it is, but he ends up asking Naomi anyways, and it's 1989, and he's like, okay, this is 1989, and this is San Francisco, and this is a baseball game that, of course, I remember that this game ended up getting canceled for good reason because there was going to be an earthquake happening. So evidently, Song is a really massive baseball fan, or luckily, this just so happens to work out to where Song is to be familiar with this earthquake. So Song is telling Naomi and grabbing her and telling her that they need to get out of here because the building of which that they are in can possibly collapse at any moment. So they rush on and get the heck out of there. And coinkydingly, that is when the earthquake erupts. And we have a number of people that are like, whoa, whoa, oh my god. So we have Song and Naomi that are within this chaos. And so we go on to have a moment where Naomi is looking after someone who has gotten injured, and Song is running off to see if he can seek out help with possibly getting to some kind of authorities of sorts. And so Song runs off. Song ends up running off to find these ambulance drivers, and he points to where, hey, injured over there, go that. So we then have Addison that appears to Song, and Song's like, oh, thank God. So Ben is going on to talk to Addison, of course, about like, well, hey, like who is that guy? Like, who is this sleeper guy? And Addison's like, we don't know. We don't know yet. We don't have that information. And so Song is like, well, shouldn't you have that information? So, um, Song, of course, is going on to talk to Addison about who he is, what year it is, and why he has gone on to leap here. And it seems that finally in this episode, it seems that there is a more accurate Ziggy assessment of what Song is here to do. And so I'm like, good. Like, don't be like giving me this goofy crap where it's like, we have no idea why you're here. We have no idea why you're here, Song. We can't figure it out. Still, within 6 episodes, we're confused. So, we go on and have Song who's like, okay, like, alright, like, so now I have Addison here. I think that everything is okay. So, we have Song who ends up going back to Naomi, and they are to go back to Naomi's home. Come to find out, they are to realize that that Naomi's son, who is Jason, is not home, and so come to find out, Jason had left his parents to go back to their old place that they used to live, and so now we have both Song and now Naomi trying to go after and find Jason wherever he's now to be at. So Song ends up realizing this because he sees a photo of the family, and the photo is now torn. Really giving us this image here that like this family is no more, and also that this picture is to justify that. So as well as Ben going on and dealing with Jason missing and so on and so forth, we have Song who is to start to get flashbacks of him and his mother when Ben was much younger. So we in this flashback seemingly have a young Ben who is talking to his mother, and like this flashback, like none of this flashbacks with uh young Ben and his mother mean much to me, but it all is to have at some point a reasoning for this flashback, and I'll go on and justify that later on. Like, I'm going to state that the flashbacks happen, but like none of them really make sense until like the end of it. So I think I'll go on and justify the end when we get to the part where it ties into this. So come to find out, we had Song realize that it's like, okay, well, like this is at their old address. Song needs to go on and try to ask Addison. It's like, well, hey, can you figure out where this is? Because I have no clue. And so Addison is to go on and look it up, and it seems that Song and Naomi are trying to figure out how to get there. And Addison is exactly stating when Jason does die within this apartment complex that they're going to, and they have like an hour and a half or something like that before Jason dies in this apartment complex or wherever they're going to. So come to find out, Addison is to realize that there's certain locations that of course are blocked off because of this earthquake, or there's some places where they're having issues having Addison figure out where of course, Ben can go. But they realize that Naomi and Ben could walk to where Jason is. So both Song and Naomi are kind of like quickly making a good pace to try to get to Jason. So now I can go on and kind of put a pin and talk more about the behind the leap stuff. So we are of course going on to have now them getting facial recognition to figure out who Leaper X is. And so we have Magic, Jen, and Ian all at this one computer, and Ian is going on and telling both Magic and Jen, like, yeah, this isn't going to happen so quickly. Like, you guys are going to have to go on and wait a while, because, like, this may take a month to do this, because we're, like, going through, like, a mass number of people to try to figure out who this is. And so, luckily, they were able to wait a little bit longer to then find out who this person is easily. Come to find out, this guy is to have been Richard Martinez, and they went through the NSA database to go on and find him. So, come to find out also, we find out that there is a good percentage of chance also in Song's Leap. For the reason why he's there is to save Jason, but it seems that that takes on a whole other meaning when we actually get to that point. So I'll get into that. So we find out that Richard Martinez is to be this Leaper X. So we have Ian, who is consistently calling him Leaper X, and Magic groans about that. Is like, seriously? Like, come on. And even when Ian slips and calls him Leaper X again, Magic is like, like, and then Ian's like, okay, Richard Martinez. So we have both Jen and Magic who go on to the location of where Richard Martinez lives. And it seems that Richard is to be kind of away from his duties. I believe he's in the Marines, or he's in the military. And this guy left for family reasons, and so like he's on like a leave for family reasons. So we have both Jen and Magic making their way to Richard, and they end up getting his whole backstory. It seems like this guy is nice, and he wants to help out in any way possible with Magic and Jen, which is to have them go on and state, like, who is this guy? And so we have Richard that goes on and states that he was to have been 9, and his other siblings were to be like 6 or 7. And so he is to have this whole backstory that is to lead him to like want to be this very like stand-up guy and do everything that he can possibly do to help these people. And both Magic and Jen are both looking at him, and they're baffled and confused, because it's like, then why is he trying to stop our project at every seemingly at every one episode? Like, why is this guy trying to fight us in possibly what is to be a future Leaper that could be somewhere 10 years down the road, or 5 years down the road, or whichever? So they're baffled and confused by this. And so we also had a moment where, like, Martinez's mother just kind of brings food to the table, and Magic or Jen ends up saying, like, well, we don't need this spread. And Martinez is like, well, she's going to bring it in anyways. So So like it feels that Martinez, as well as even his mother, are good people. So they're very confused about what they just saw, what they just were to think about. And so now, after speaking to Martinez, we're really just having Magic, who's just like, well, I don't know what to do now. But they're gonna put surveillance on this guy, and they are also thinking about like really looking deep into uh, like anything that kind of seems like a red flag, like he had gotten like a big sum of money somewhere, or something along those lines. Like there has to be something that identifies that this guy is to be working with someone and not moonlighting as doing another job or another project somewhere. Because of course Jen is to ask Martinez, it's like, well, hey, are you also going on and like doing some other job here, like working with some private contractor? And Martinez is stating no. So we go on to just be like, well, like what a waste of time that was. So we then go on and have Jen, who is talking to Ian, and Ian is to now have within his brain, like thinking about time travel or whatever. And Ian is possibly thinking that maybe both Jen and Magic going to Martinez set something in motion. Maybe Martinez was just so bothered by both Jen and Magic coming to his place that he was to then seek out this whole operation 5 to 10 years down the road to go on and go into the project. And so Ian and Jen are kind of arguing about this, but the real clear consensus that Jen makes is like, well, hey, like, let's not focus too much about this Martinez problem now, and instead let's focus on uh, the real issue here, which of course is both Addison and Song in the past and how we can help them. And Jen just realizes that she ends up kind of doing this kind of goofy way of like talking here, and Ian's like, yeah, our lives are so weird. And so, speaking of the past, let's go on and get into this. So, we of course have Song, who is to find that there are people who are kind of stuck in their car, and there is a transformer that might fall on them at any minute, electrifying them and killing them. And so both Song and Naomi stop to help, and what they end up doing is having Song, who is trying to break this windshield. And in my brain, I'm thinking, I'm like, you can't just easily break a windshield. Look at the very first Terminator movie. In the Terminator movie, we could have the Terminator break through the windshield simply because his hand was made from liquid metal, or metal. In that case, of the first Terminator, the liquid metal comes in the sequel, but still. Uh, we had the Terminator bash through the windshield, and Song is just thinking that he can just kind of smack this windshield with his own hand and it'll easily break, which makes no sense. So instead, they end up giving him a pipe, this metal pipe, and he starts breaking it. And man, does this windshield just come flying off so easily. Because of course it does, because this is a show. So Song just starts pulling people out, and we end up finding that Naomi, who is kind of stuck in the middle of all this, who's not even realizing that she is going to fall right into her possibly getting killed here, because when this transformer falls, it falls right into the water that Naomi is stepping in, And that all of a sudden leads to having Naomi fall over and she seemingly is dead. We have Song who realizes, oh my god, like, what should I do now? And Addison is to go on and tell Song that he needs to perform CPR. And Song is like, I don't know how to perform CPR. How do you not know how to perform CPR? Man, even I know how to perform CPR. Like, shouldn't everybody know how to, like, you have to kind of tilt the head back, and then you have to go on and do the heart palpitations and whatever and all that stuff. You have to do CPR. Everybody should know, because it's going to come down to that moment where you're not going to know how to do CPR. But so, anyways, we just have Addison who just tells Song to just punch Naomi in the chest by doing it in one fluid motion, that she is going to show him what to do. And so Song is like, all right. So he ends up basically hitting Naomi in the chest, and she immediately comes back to life from one hit. Man, does Song probably just break all of her ribs, right? I'm sure that's what happened. He just, like, you'll find out later that's like, yeah, like, all of her ribs were all broken. I don't know why that is. Song must have just had a really powerful punch, even though the character that he leaps into is supposedly not all of that. Like, what did she say? This person hasn't worked out in years, so they're not as healthy as what Song is trying to have this person be to do all this miraculous stuff. But anyways, so we have Song, and I'm also waiting for an episode where they have to have Song be like a weightlifter. That'll be a fun episode where he goes on and has to, like, be like some kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger like character, where it's like, yes, I'm pumping, yeah. Wouldn't that be hilarious? I want to see that episode where Song is like kind of like doing all these like poses in this like skimpy like he's being this this weightlifter that, or the god, what is it, the like the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, the Mr. Universe. Let's see him do that, like body sculpting and whatever. Anyways, that would be funny. But anyways, pushing on. I'm coming up with all kinds of ideas for this show. This show should hire me as a writer. It's a joke, but I'm running with it. So, speaking of which, once Naomi comes back to, we have Song who's like, hey, ambulance people that are already right there, come over here and help out my wife. And Naomi is stating to Song that's like, hey, go for our son. Like, go and save him. So we now go on to find out that there's like 45 minutes seemingly until Song is going to die, or Song's son is going to die, who is Jason, and the person that Song is leaping into. So we have Song who's running like crazy to try to get to his son, and that's when Addison is to try and go on and tell Song where to go. And when Song is to be talking with Addison again, Addison is to ask John, it's like, well, do you, like, trust me? And Ben is like, well, like, you're the only one that I can trust. And so that's, of course, when Song is to take a breather and is to talk about his mother. And so, come to find out, Song at one point had gone on and had so many disagreements with his mother that led to him leaving his mother. Just kind of going on and just leaving her. But come to find out, when Song at some point did come back to his mom had died from a brain aneurysm, I believe, is what they stated in this episode. If I'm wrong, then... But if I'm right, then man, do I have a good memory. So, Song is talking about that and how his own mother had died. And so, we go on to have now, like, Song is really thinking of family and how, like, if Song could possibly go on and save Jason, where he couldn't have gone on and saved his own mother, like, maybe that'll even things out. So we go on to have Song running off to this apartment complex where supposedly his son is to be at. And it seems that Song doesn't even know who his own son is. Like, he just saw a picture of him, but he still doesn't even know who his son looks like. I guess he can probably, like, let's rationalize this because we have to. For Ben going on and just looking at random people and asking if it's Jason, maybe because the photo of Jason he could think is an old photo. That maybe Jason is much older, and that could be the reasoning why, like, Ben gets confused. But for Song to just go on and really just try to shake everybody like, Jason, right? Because I have no clue. And then Addison's like, hey, over here. Yo, this one. So Song makes it to Jason, and come to find out, the only reason why Jason is still back at this apartment complex is because he had heard about this earthquake, and it seems that there is one stubborn man who will not go on and leave his place, who is Mr. Wheeler. And so Jason is going on and being tempted to want to go in to save this guy, and Ben is telling him, no, stay here no matter what you do. And of course, he goes on and does the opposite, but we'll get to that. So Ben goes on into this place to find that this old man is to, of course, be kind of struggling getting out of his chair. And so Ben is like, okay, come on, we have to get out of here. And what ends up happening is Ben ends up having this big beam fall on him, and so he's like, ah! And so he had gotten knocked out. Mr. Wheeler is calling out to Song to say, like, hey, I'll go and get help. So Wheeler ends up leaving the place to then find out that Jason comes back to try and wake up Song, as well as also Addison is trying the same thing. So it seems that finally Jason is to kind of shake Ben good enough to wake him up. And so now we kind of have the moment of Batman Begins, where Alfred is trying to tell Bruce Wayne, like, hey, like lift this thing. And Bruce is like, I'm trying. And Alfred goes on and says, like, Master Wayne, like, you do so many push-ups and yet you can't lift a bloody log. And so finally, like, Bruce goes on and just lifts it, and then he, like, gets out of there, and then they, like, run out. And so, like, I thought that was kind of, like, reminding me of Batman Begins. So, come to find out, Jason and Ben are now tag teaming or teaming up against this beam to try and lift it as best as they can. And somehow Ben squeaks out of there and gets out from under this beam. And then both Jason and now Ben have to really run out of this building because there's only minutes before they are to possibly have this whole building collapse and they die. So they're running out of there. They luckily get out of there in the nick of time. And so both Ben and Jason are to go on and hug it out, and Jason's like, well, hey, I'm sorry about what I did, and Ben is like, no, like, I understand why you did what you did, because, of course, Ben, like, remembering about his mom is to kind of help him out in this situation here, to understand why Jason is to go on and do what he does. So, we have a moment where Ben and Jason are hugging it out, and we see the reflection of who, of course, Ben had leaped into. So I'm like, okay, good. There is some kind of thing that is to showcase, like, like, we're not going to go on and do the mirror thing every single episode, or kind of a reflective surface every single episode, but we're still getting something. So, because I was like having a real issue of like, the episode, what the heck, that's garbage. I want to see the other guy, because I want to always see that in every episode, even though that seems like redundant, but still, like, I always want to see the other person because it makes all the sense in the world to have this be a leap, where somebody else is playing song here. But anyways, or somebody is song. So anyways, uh, we then have Addison, who is telling Ben that maybe Ben saving Jason was not enough to have him leap yet. And so Ben is like, well, I think I know what it is I need to do. So Ben takes Jason to this hospital where I guess they easily figure it out where exactly Naomi is at. Because show. So we go on to have Ben like kind of put out Jason to talk to his mother, and Naomi is to mention how like, oh my god, like, you saved Jason, John, and Addison's like, well, he had help. But like, Addison gets no credit because she's a hologram. Sadly enough, she gets no credit from Naomi anyways. So we go on to have like Jason apologizing, and Naomi is like, of course, like it's just important that you're okay, so on and so forth. So both Naomi and Jason are to hug it out, and so come to find out, the family does reconcile, that things work out, that even Jason is to go on and become this engineer, yada yada yada. So it seems that we go on to have Ben that leaps shortly thereafter that. And so Addison goes on and is to go back, and she has a moment where she goes on and talks to Jen, and Addison is to state that Ben is much different than who he was before. It seems that Ben may be a better person, or a better version of Ben than he ever was from before he started leaping. That it seems he's more compassionate, or he's more uh like, he's even like just much more different than what he was. And so Addison is to say even more so that she is falling in love with Ben more than she has ever been in love with him, because of how like she really is liking what all he's doing while he's leaping. And so when is Ben gonna die? How is it gonna happen? How is Song just gonna get killed? And then that's the reason why they have this other leaper, the Leaper X. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So I don't want to kill Song off. That wouldn't make any sense. Um, so with that said, we have Song that goes on and leaps into some time period, which is Halloween. So come to find out, we have Ben who is to leap into a guy called Father Davenport. And I'm like, Davenport just sounds like a name that I've seen in so many other things. Um, and yet also, I'm waiting for one leap for them to go on and do some movie or some show, and Ben doesn't know that it's a that it's a movie or it's a show, and then he gets really confused or he gets really baffled. And wouldn't that be really fun? That all of a sudden he realizes that he's on a set somewhere. Wouldn't that be a cool idea? But so we have Father Davenport, who it seems is doing some exorcism or some possession, because this is on Halloween, and it seems that the woman who is to go on and open this door and talk to Ben is to state that it seems that things have turned out worse for this woman, for whoever he's going on and trying to help in this episode. So this looks really cool. Like whatever this episode for next week will be, and I hope that they're going to nail it. I hope that they're going to do really well with this episode, because I'm like, this sounds cool, this idea for the following week. Luckily, they gave us the following week leap episode. I was kind of cringing because I was like, oh my god, are they not going to give me the next leap? Are they going to leave it off? Because the conversation between both Ian and Magic I thought was just going to finish up the episode. And I was like, no, give me the next leap. What is the next leap? Don't freaking cliffhanger me by doing that. So with that said, I know I went on far too long for this, but I'm going to get out of here. So let me know in the comments below how you felt about this episode. But goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. The phone call. I almost forgot about it. So after Jason and Naomi reconcile and so on and so forth, we have Ben race off to realize that it's 89 and his mother could still be alive at this time period. So Ben rushes off to a phone to call his mother to talk to her because she is still, of course, alive. And when Addison is going on and talking to Jen, and they're talking about how Song is to seemingly be much different and Addison is to fall much more in love with him, we have Jen that is also stating, it's like, well, hey, like, I need to get out of here because I also need to call my mother. And because we had, of course, Song, who was to ask Addison while also being at Naomi's home. Ben was to ask Addison of whether or not that his parents are still together, or even if his parents are still alive. And Addison tells Song no, they're dead. And so Song throughout this episode is to go on and figure out why. So kind of doing like an early thing at the end of this, but either way, covering that. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.